Deep dives and blue skies. Welcome back to Talking Blue with Nick, the best Dodgers analytical podcast that you can find.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Talking Blue, the best Dodgers analytical podcast that you could find. I am your host, Nick. You are listening to episode 116 of Talking Blue. It is not an exciting day. I normally say that. It's an exciting day. That is not the case today. I hope everybody's doing okay, better than I am, because the Dodgers have lost 6 straight games. They are 0-6 in their last 6 games. Back-to-back sweeps, by the Boston Red Sox and Chicago Cubs. Everything is going wrong for the Dodgers. So we have a ton of stuff to talk about today. First off, we will start with a lot of roster injury stuff. Then we'll get into the games. I don't even have a ton of stuff written down to talk about. I may end up just rambling all over the place. I don't even know how long today is going to be. As always, you can get this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow us on all social media at Talking Blue Pod. You can follow myself at Nick Talking Ball on X. All right, so like I said a second ago, the first half, or I don't know how long, but I am going to take a good amount of time to talk about some roster/injury stuff. The last time I spoke to you guys about Dodger games was, I don't even remember, because the last couple of podcasts were trade deadline stuff, Tarek Skubal trade, so I haven't really sat here and talked about some games. I wasn't able to recap the Red Sox series where the Dodgers got swept, and I had to get on here and talk about these 3 games in Chicago. So I'm going to do a lot of the couple trades that happened with the Dodgers, injury updates, because there are some pretty big ones that kind of coincide with the trade deadline. Then we'll get into the games. I will kind of run through them quickly, just give some overlooming thoughts, and then I'm going to do a little bit of some stats that I did write down, and I'll talk about that stuff and just where the Dodgers are in this overall slump and just everything that's kind of gone wrong for them. So let's start with a lot of these injury/roster stuff. So the last time I talked to you guys, we talked about the Skubal trade, but at the time there was a couple more days till the trade deadline actually expired. So the Dodgers actually made a couple of more trades, surprisingly, in addition to the Skubal trade. Kris Bubic, that is where we will start. Left-handed pitcher from the Kansas City Royals. Most Dodger fans might not be familiar with the left-handed former All-Star. That's right, he is an former All-Star All-Star starting pitcher from the Royals of 2025. Okay, the Dodgers acquire him. He is a rental. He will be a free agent after the 2026 season. He is currently on the IL. He's been on the IL with shoulder and elbow problems since May. He's currently on his way back through a bullpen session with the Dodgers recently, is expected to return this year sometime late August, early September. If you're unaware about Bubic, kind of a smaller left-hander who doesn't really throw very hard, but very funky delivery, sidearm, kind of just weird delivery, has spent time as a reliever and starter. 2024, he was coming back from, I don't know if it was Tommy John or just surgery, pitched a lot of relief innings for the Royals, and was dominant, even though he doesn't have overpowering stuff. Had a lot of really good strikeouts, swing and miss numbers, doesn't walk hitters, was really, really nasty in 30 innings out of the bullpen. Then he went back to being a starter in 2025, pitched a little over 100 innings, 130 innings, was an all-star, ERA under 3, really had really good strikeout numbers again, gets ground balls. The walk rate did increase, but still is a guy that is has good command and will get strikeouts, funky stuff. Just really talented pitcher. The Dodgers acquire. I would imagine they have acquired him in the hopes that he can go to the bullpen, maybe a multi-inning kind of reliever. And obviously it's just insurance who knows if a bunch of chaos ensues with the Dodgers rotation. So we'll see how all that develops, and can't even really think about him for a few weeks to see what he can actually turn into for the Dodgers. But very interesting that the Dodgers acquire not one, but 2 left-handed former All-Stars from the American League Central. Wouldn't have guessed that. When that tweet popped up on my phone, I was like, what? Kris Bubic? And then it kind of made sense that he could come out of the bullpen. So just very interesting, and just another quality all-star kind of arm that the Dodgers can have to their entire pitching staff come October. So we'll have to see what happens with Bubic. But really some of the interesting stuff that the Dodgers did that kind of coincides with injury stuff. The Dodgers are, I shouldn't say reacquired not one but two former catchers. Ben Rortvedt, that is right, fan favorite from last year. Ben Rortvedt acquired from the Mets. And then Hunter Fiducia, who was actually traded for Ben Rortvedt from the Rays last year, also reacquired by the Dodgers. Okay, so you might have thought that had to do with the Will Smith stuff. I talked about in one of my trade deadline videos about what the Dodgers could possibly do in terms of acquiring a catcher. Well, the reason that this actually took place is because the Dodgers were aware of an injury that was going on potentially with Dalton Rushing. Okay, I forget if it was Sunday night's game against the Red Sox or Monday's game against the Cubs, where Rushing was a kind of a late scratch. It was said elbow problems, elbow soreness, whatever the case may be. Didn't seem like a huge issue at first. I believe that was Sunday night's game. Then there were some quotes from Dave Roberts, I believe that came out Monday night, Tuesday, whatever. I think it was Monday. I don't know exactly what the quote was. Forgive me, I can't remember, but it was something like, we are really unaware about what his elbow is, and we have no idea where this is going. As soon as I heard that quote, I started to get a little scared, and I started to think, ooh, this might not just be elbow soreness or a quick IL stint. This might be a huge problem. Well, it did come out after Tuesday night's game, after the Tuesday night loss. I think it was Kirsten Watson who reported Dalton Rushing has a partially torn UCL in his right arm, his throwing arm. For those of you who might be unaware what that means, that is basically Tommy John for a position player. Your UCL is that band, that rubber band kind of thing in your elbow. When that rips, that is when you get Tommy John. All right, and it's not uncommon for it to happen in position players. Corey Seager had it with the Dodgers. Bryce Harper a couple years ago. I know that some other catchers have had it as well. So right now, everything is kind of up in the air. They're saying that he can and will try to rehab it. He's going to be shut down from throwing for a few weeks, and it's possible he can return this season. But just right now, completely, in the unknown about what's really going on with his elbow. I'll be honest. I think we've seen the last of Rushing in 2026. I would imagine. Given the fact that he's a catcher and he is going to need Tommy John surgery, I would imagine. I don't think we're going to see him again. And I don't think it would even be smart to try to rehab it, to try to come back just for him to be like, I can't throw and this isn't working. And then you're just kind of pushing back surgery that you could be having. I do understand that it is late in the season, and Tommy John is a little different for position players. When position players get Tommy John done, they can kind of come back in like 4 to 5 months or something like that, maybe even a little bit quicker. I'm pretty sure Bryce Harper had Tommy John surgery in either October, November after that year they went to the World Series in 2022. I think that's when it was. And then he was back on the team with the Phillies in the lineup like that following May. All right, now that was one of the quicker examples of a player returning. But the point is that Rushing could get surgery right now, let's say on his UCL for Tommy John, and probably be ready for opening day next year as the Dodgers' backup catcher. Again, different from someone like Harper, who eventually went out to play first base and DH'd a lot. Rushing is a catcher. So I don't know why they're trying to, or I guess I know why, because there's a chance he could still play through it. But being the fact that he's a catcher, if you're basically just going to go out there with incredible elbow pain, anytime the opposing team gets a runner on base, they're just going to steal because you probably can't throw. So if I had to guess, they will try to have him rehab it the next couple weeks, and then probably sometime in mid to late August, it'll be announced that he is going to have some kind of surgery or he's just shut down for the remainder of the year. So that really sucks. Obviously, Rushing was moved up to the starting catcher because of Will Smith's injury. There have been better updates with Will as of late. It does look like he's going to come back, and it won't even be too long. It could be the end of August or something like that. But obviously, Rushing has had a really, really great season. He's definitely done a lot for this team, OPS over 800. I think it's been a big second, year for rushing, a big, leap forward in his progression as a big leaguer. I think he's really proven to a lot of people that he was a top prospect for a reason. He can hit, he can handle the catching position. I actually think that he's a pretty solid defensive catcher. I know that the metrics aren't as good this year as they were his rookie season, but the bat is something that's way better than it was his rookie season as well. So, I think it's really unfortunate. We'll see what happens. Maybe he gets some kind of cortisone shot and the elbow will feel better. And then if Will Smith comes back and he goes back into a backup role, then it's kind of something that he can manage as a backup. But I just don't see how rushing, if he has to be the starting catcher, could play with an elbow that needs to basically be operated on. I don't know how that's going to work. So that really sucks. The reason I'm not too disappointed is because I think Will Smith's going to come back, and I don't think it's going to matter too much. And then I think that'll move, probably Ben Rortvedt to be the backup catcher, just like we were last October. He calls a great game. He's pretty solid defensively, and he did a lot for that pitching staff. So that really stinks. It's kind of funny that they bring back not just Rortvedt, but also Hunter Fiducia, who got the start in Wednesday's game. So back to having two left-handed catchers. It's going to be really funky from here on out, but it makes sense that the Dodgers went out to acquire two guys that the organization is familiar with, and that the two players are familiar with the Dodgers pitching staff. So there doesn't have to be a whole lot of crazy meet and greets and understanding of how to call the game and how the Dodgers like to do things. Rortvedt was here last year, and a lot in the months of August and September caught guys like Snell and Glasnow and Yamamoto and all those kind of guys. And Hunter Fiducia has familiarity with those guys too. It's kind of funny how Rushing and Ben Rortvedt and Skubal met 20 minutes before. He had to catch him, and they were talking about that on the broadcast. Not 20 minutes before the game, but he just met him that day, and he had to catch Tarek Skubal for the first time. So we're kind of in a period of time where the Dodgers are struggling, a little bit of banged up, guys struggling, individually. So those are a lot of those little updates. We'll keep it going. These are more of the just guys overall that are injured and updates on them. We spent a lot of time so far on this, so I'll try to keep it moving. But Blake Snell, all right, he finished his final rehab assignment. That was yesterday, August 4th. Didn't make it into the fifth inning, so he isn't necessarily too built up, but he will return next week for the Dodgers. That'll probably be Monday or Tuesday. They're going to have to figure out when to get him in. He won't pitch this weekend, so because he pitched on Tuesday last week, again, I would imagine it'll be sometime Monday, Tuesday, maybe even Wednesday. It depends on what they want to do with Skubal and all that. So great. Blake Snell will be back next week. That is nice. Tyler Glasnow, he completed his first rehab assignment also yesterday. He threw 16 pitches in the game and then threw more pitches in the bullpen. His next rehab start will be Sunday, August 9th. All right, so that'll be his second rehab. If it is a similar timeline to Snell, who made 4 rehab assignments, can look to see him basically right at the end of August. Maybe he gets in an extra rehab assignment because he was obviously down for a much longer time. A couple injuries that transpired last week when I wasn't able to do recaps. Will Klein, Brock Stewart, two of the Dodgers' right-handed relievers. Will Klein lands on the IL with right elbow discomfort. Brock Stewart lands on the IL with shoulder tendonitis. I think that Will Klein, we'll see because it's an elbow. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if Klein, that injury was just, or that IL was kind of to give him a breather because he has not pitched well the last month and a half or so. Stewart is definitely just, I've said this before, it's crazy how much this guy's been hurt since he's been with the Dodgers. Hopefully he can come back and be fine. I think he will. It seems like both of those are not really too big of deals. Probably would have liked to see the Dodgers get a little bit more insurance at the deadline with a reliever. But with that said, they did just bring back Edwin Diaz. They do have now a litany of starters that will kick to the bullpen at some point, like Lauer or maybe Robleski. So they're going to have a bunch of arms ready to go. But it does suck to see not one but two right-handed relievers that you're going to rely on go down. Last couple guys, Shohei and Will Smith, are same update as recently. Not really any updates. Shohei's not really throwing. He could throw soon, and we'll probably get some real updates on him next series when they play the Diamondbacks. And then Will Smith has resumed baseball activities, but really hasn't progressed anywhere like a rehab or anything like that. So those are the updates on all of those guys. Let's finally, 15 minutes into this, get into the games. I'm going to run through them quick, and I'm not going to have like a deep dive necessarily on like all the pitchers. I will talk a little bit about Scooble because we finally got to see him in a Dodger uniform, but just going to kind of go through the games quickly. What I remember, they all sucked, to be honest, sucked in their own ways. And then I'm going to get into some numbers on how the Dodgers have performed since July 1st. Okay, so game one of this series was Justin Robleski taking on Matthew Boyd. Game one in Chicago. This actually started off very promising. Ironically, Tommy Edman, 3 batters into the series, hits a 3-run shot to left field to put them up 3-0. So there we go. Off to a great start, but right away in the bottom of the first, Seiya Suzuki makes it a 3-2 game with a 2-run shot. Later on in the second inning, Kevin Alcantara of the Cubs hits a home run, a 2-run shot to make it 4-3 Cubs. Later on, 2-run shot from Carson Kelly makes it a 6-3 ball game. Dodgers would put on a couple more runs in the fourth. Elizer Alfonso, this was before he got sent down for fiducia. He singles into center field. It's a 6-4 game. Michael Busch, he hit a home run. He just loves to crush the Dodgers ever since he got traded away from them. That makes it a 7-4 game. Teoscar Hernandez would hit his 11th home run of the year, 2-run shot. Or no, a solo home run, hit it out onto Waveland. Actually, this ball was launched. Makes it a 7-5 game, but the Cubs would tally on a couple more runs later in the game. Carson Kelly, Michael Busch again, makes it a 10-5 game. And that would be the final score. The Dodgers lose the series opener. They lose their 4th straight game, and disappointing loss. They actually did have some offense that showed up in this game, but Robleski was kind of the story. He goes 4 1/3 innings pitched, gives up 7 hits, 7 earned runs, did walk 3. He only struck out 4, and he gave up 4 home runs. All right. Continues his last couple, stretch of games where he did not pitch great, gave up a couple home runs like he did previously to the Mariners. So Robleski's going to have to get things in line. Okay, here are my thoughts from this game. This is what I wrote down, okay? Robleski got bombed. Edgardo Henriquez out of the pen, couldn't throw any strikes. That really screwed the Dodgers when they kind of got back into the game and then immediately gave it back up. He was not able to get throw strikes and then gave up some 2-out hits. Immediately after the Dodgers went up 3-0 thanks to the Tommy Edman home run, they only put up 2 more runs for the rest of the game. At least Kyle Tucker and Teo had 2 hits. That's nice, but disappointing loss. I'll get into this later, but it feels like throughout this Dodger stretch of how horrible they've played the last week, it feels like it's been everything that's gone wrong. The bullpen's been bad, giving up a ton of homers. The pitching overall, the starting pitching and bullpen, giving up so many homers, putting the offense in holes. And then it feels like the offense hasn't been horrific, but on the nights that they do put up a lot of runs, then the pitching gets bombed and they're screwed. And then when the pitching actually gives a decent performance, like I'll get into in a sec on Tuesday with Tarek Skubal, they don't do enough offensively. So it's kind of just one of those stretches where nothing can go right. And Robleski is going to have to get right back in line because I've said before in the past with his underlying metrics, he was kind of fortunate to have the ERA that he did, and things were getting much better that I did chronicleize for a long time with his strikeout rates. He was looking to look more real per se. That's unfair, but that's just I'm an analytical person, so that's he is fortunate to have it as his ERA like that. Still think he's a good pitcher. Still think he'll be valuable for this team. He'll probably kick to the bullpen come postseason time. Maybe the strikeout stuff will continue to increase. But getting absolutely bombed like that puts things, makes you very scared very quickly with Robleski. So, yeah, game 1 absolutely blew. But game 2 comes around. Tarek Skubal is ready to make his Dodgers debut against Javier Assad, the right-hander of the Cubs. Skubal is right away put into the position of ace. Go out there. It's win day. We need a win. We need to end this 4-game losing spot. Skid, go out there, pitch us some innings, and we will hopefully score some runs. Dodgers got on the board first once again in the second inning. Former Chicago Cub Kyle Tucker, his 10th home run of the year, hits it out to left field. Tucker actually had some pretty good at-bats in this series. A couple singles, homer, double, actually had some pretty decent at-bats. Dodgers go up 1-0. In the third inning, this was off of Tarek Skubal. Dansby Swanson jumps all over a fastball, crushes it out to left field. Homer off of Skubal to make it a 1-1 game. Later on in the sixth inning, Skubal was trying to pitch out of trouble. 2 outs, sixth inning, a couple runners on base. An infield single from Nico Horner makes it a 2-1 game. Literally chopped one off a home plate, way like 40 feet up into the air, and beat it out. Like one of those, you got to be kidding me. Skubal didn't even pitch that bad. Gives up his second earned run. Later on in the seventh inning, off of the bullpen at this point, Pete Armstrong singles into center field to make it a 3-1 game. Seiya Suzuki makes it a 4-1 game. And then Nico Horner puts the finishing touches on this game for the Cubs. He homers to make it a 5-1 game, and that is the final score. Dodgers lose their 5th straight. Tarek Skubal is on the mound. He gets the loss, 6th loss of the year for him in his first start with the Dodgers. Bullpen wasn't able to hold it down. Offense wasn't able to rally. Skubal actually pitched pretty solid. And let's talk about Skubal. All right, he was actually pretty good in his debut. I was really excited and interested to sit down and watch him pitch live. Watch him, really just dissect him. Whenever you see a pitcher for the first time, and it's not the first time I've seen Skubal, and I wasn't shocked by things that I, learned or saw from him. But we can always, as fans of one team, you get used to watching your own team, and a lot of times that there are good players out there, but you don't really watch them on a daily basis. And when you watch guys on a daily basis, that's when you really learn about them. So I was really interested to sit down, locked in on an entire Skubal start, and kind of see what was his pitch repertoire like, and how does he attack hitters. Skubal is traditionally a guy who has four-seamer and sinker ability and uses both of those pitches pretty heavily. But what makes Skubal, his out pitch, his best pitch, is his changeup, which is arguably the best pitch in the game. And because he's a lefty, it's obviously works perfect because you face more right-handed hitters, which is a perfect pitch to have as a lefty. You kind of need to have a changeup as a lefty in Major League Baseball. It's very rare that you can see lefties who are dominant without a changeup. Ironically, the only one that comes to mind is Clayton Kershaw. But because you face so many right-handed hitters, because of the way a changeup works, it kind of fades arm side away from the hitter. You kind of need that as a left-handed pitcher. That's exactly what Skubal has. But because it's his best pitch, I know that he also will occasionally, more than occasionally, will throw it left on left. You don't always see same side changeups. Like a right-handed pitcher throws a changeup to a right-handed hitter. Same thing with lefties. You don't always see that because the pitch, like I said, has that arm side movement, so it could potentially fade right into the hitter's wheelhouse. So that's kind of a reason you don't see a lot of same side changeups. Skubal, though, has the ability to throw that. He did throw a good amount in this game. He also throws a curveball and a slider. So I was just kind of interested to see how he goes about facing hitters. One thing I noticed is to a lot of right-handed hitters, he started them off first pitch slider, like a get me over slider, first pitch strike. Threw some curveballs to righties and lefties. The sinker he throws to righty and lefties. He actually threw a lot of sinkers in this game, so his pitch percentage, he went 31% sinker, 28% four-seamer, 24% changeup, 14% slider, and then 4% curveball. So he has a legit 5-pitch mix. The fastball velo was actually up a tad, so he averaged 96.7 for the season on both his four-seamer and his sinker. In this game, he averaged 97.3. So his velo was up. It was noticeable. He did touch 99 multiple times throughout the game. The velo on all his pitches were up, so he was pretty juiced up. And, the thing about Tarek Skubal, like I said, that kind of makes him so elite is that he is a true command strike-throwing ace that also has strikeout ability and strikeout stuff. Okay, so a guy, normally you think of pitchers that have great command. They usually don't always have the best of stuff or strikeout ability. And then the guys who throw super hard or have a lot of great strikeout stuff, sometimes they will allow some walks. Okay, and Skubal is basically the best in the game at minimizing walks as good as anyone in the game and still getting as good amount of strikeouts as anyone in the game. And it's noticeable when you watch him, because even when he had some base runners against him later in this game, 5th inning, 6th inning, his pitch count was still in a great spot. If he was able to get out of that 6th inning, if he had a couple of plays that went his way, there was one ball hit to right field that Kyle Tucker was unable to catch up against the wall, and then the infield single to Nico Horner, if those two plays goes his way, he probably actually pitches into the seventh inning, gets through 7, strikes out 7 or 8. Like, it probably looks way better. So that's another thing about him, is he just pounds the strike zone so much. He doesn't allow walks. That's what makes him really, really good with the elite strikeout stuff. Like, he quickly, he had 13 whiffs in this game for the entire outing, but through the first 3 innings pitched, he had 11 whiffs. So he was racking up the whiffs early on, but then after those first 3 innings, a little bit more contact, a couple of actually quick innings. Again, Clayton Kershaw was always famous in his day to, like, get the pitch count in order really quickly, have a quick inning, get things in order. So I see a lot of similarities with Skubal to Kershaw in his heyday. The difference, ironically, is that Skubal actually throws a lot harder. Kershaw was really like 94 to 96. Skubal literally can touch 99 miles an hour. He's still coming back from his shoulder issue, so it's not uncommon to see him get over 99 miles an hour, which he topped out at 99 in this game multiple times. So he was as advertised. It looked great. I wouldn't even I'm not going to be surprised when the next time we see him pitch, he pitches even better and has a better line. So if it wasn't for a couple plays, like I said, the Tucker play, it's funny because a lot of people were killing him on X, and I saw that it had a 95% catch probability, which means it should have been caught. But it's weird, in real time, I actually didn't think it was a horrible play. He went hard after the ball and, almost like crashed into the wall out there in the ivy. It was a catchable ball and it should have been caught, but in the moment I was like, I didn't think it was horrific. Like, I thought it was a real double. But that's one thing I've learned about Tucker. When you watch a guy every day, he does not go back on the ball very well. That is one of the reasons why it seems he's no longer a really good defensive outfielder. He comes in on the ball fine. He's got a good arm. He moves laterally well. But it seems like when balls are over his head and he has to go run them down, he's not very good at that. So that is it. Bullpen, like I said, couldn't hold it down for Skubal. A couple 2-out hits. Like I said, finally got a good start from the pitching, but the offense absolutely sucked. Kyle Tucker had 2 hits and a home run, but other than that, 5 total hits and 1 run. So you get a good pitching outing, you get no offense. That's the way it's going right now for the Dodgers. Let's quickly go to this third game, which sucked, actually, just completely sucked again today. I guess it's just my favorite word. Suck. All right, game 3. This was Shota Imanaga against Eric Lauer. Promising start, top of the first batter of the game. Ohtani hits a leadoff home run, 25th of the year. But the MVP, that is Shohei Ohtani and PCA MVP race, they start off this game, each of them, with leadoff home runs. Both of them, it's their 25th home run of the year. They are having like the same exact offensive season. PCA ties up the game in the first. Later on in the second inning, RBI double from Swanson, RBI double from Pete Crow Armstrong makes it 3-1. Fourth inning, another home run from PCA. He is just cooking the Dodgers. It's a 5-1 game. Bregman makes it 6-1. Later on, it's now 7-1. The Dodgers would actually get back into this game in the 8th inning. A 3-run homer from Max Muncy makes it 7-4. Then right after that, another home run from Ohtani, his 26th of the year, makes it a 1-run game, a 2-run shot. But the Dodgers were not able to rally in the bottom of the 9th. They go down 1-2-3, and the Dodgers lose. They get swept. They lose their 6th straight, and it is another game where the offense did show up later in the game, but the starter, the guy who started the game, was horrible. It's kind of funny to believe that somebody actually pitched worse than Robleski Monday night. That was Eric Lauer. He goes 4 innings pitched, 11 hits, 6 earned runs, no walks, 1 strikeout, and he gave up 2 home runs. All right, so what do I have written down for this game, you might ask? Lauer got absolutely obliterated. Like I said, 11 hits, 6 earned runs, 2 home runs. You thought maybe the offense was going to show a little bit more life after the Ohtani leadoff home run. And again, I think that the stats in this game are a little misleading because if you take a look at the box score, the Dodgers scored 6, and they had 14 hits in this game. All right. But after that leadoff home run, they were held scoreless all the way until the 8th inning. So they scored 1 in the first, then they scored 5 in the 8th. Other than that, in between that, they didn't do anything. They did have some hits, but they left a ton of runners on base. 14 hits, but they went 1 for 6 with runners in scoring position, and they left 9 on base. Mookie Betts did have 4 hits, so that is nice. They were talking about it all day on the broadcast that 1 year ago exactly on August 5th is when Mookie Betts started his hot streak to end 2025, where he hit like over 300, OPS close to 900, the final like 40-something games. That started on August 5th. And today on August 5th, he gets 4 hits. So hopefully Mookie Betts will do the same. But that's all my thoughts on those 3 games. They absolutely sucked. No other way to describe it. The pitching was god-awful. The bullpen was not great. And then the offense was, didn't align with the pitching. So let's talk about what the Dodgers have done since July 1st. So as you guys know, I've chronicled this so much where in 2025, the Dodgers had the best record in baseball all the way up until July, and then really where their struggles began was in July. So it was something to keep an eye on to me. How did they play throughout July and into the second half of the season? Now, they didn't play horrible throughout the month of July. The last 6 games is what really makes this look worse, but this is where a lot of the Dodgers' struggles have begun. And then really in this last week with these 6 losses is where everything looks really, really bad. So let's look at a couple components of the team since July 1st. So we'll start with the offense. All right, these are all offensive rankings for the Dodgers since July 1st. They are 19th in team on-base percentage. All right, 21st in team slugging percentage, 22nd in team OPS, 19th in total runs, and 24th in home runs. So they're not getting on base. They're not slugging. All right, here are some individual OPSs in that time. So Freddie Freeman, Ohtani, and Rushing are all over 800, but look at these numbers on some other guys. Kyle Tucker, 748. Max Muncy, 722. Tommy Edmonds, 722. Andy Pajes, 716. Tasker Hernandez, 664. Miguel Rojas, 621. Mookie Betts, 509. Now, these don't include today's game where some of these numbers would be better, of course. But that shows that after Ohtani and Rushing and Freddie Freeman, everybody else is either mid or horrible since the beginning of July. When you look at the starting pitching, they are 19th in team starting pitching ERA, 22nd in FIP, and they are second in home runs allowed since July 1st. Second. The second most home runs allowed by the starting pitching over the last month plus. And then the bullpen, 24th in team ERA, 28th in team FIP, first in walk rate. All right, they are walking an incredible amount of hitters, and that is part of the reason as to why the bullpen has struggled. 6th in runs and 4th in home runs allowed. So you allow walks and home runs, that is a recipe for an absolute disaster. All right, some individual ERAs in that time since July 1st. Will Klein, 756. Kyle Hurt, 750. Edgardo Henriquez, 523. Evan Phillips, 519. Alex Vesia, 409. I know ERA is not the best stat, but, it's still a stat, and it still shows that these guys have not been great. Since July 1st, the Dodgers are 13 and 15. Now, again, like I said, a lot of that looks worse because of the 6-game losing streak. If the Dodgers were able to cut that in half and go 3-3 in the last 6 games, they would obviously be over 500 slightly in the months since July 1st. And if you look at good teams throughout the entirety of a season, and you go month by month, the recipe to having a really good team, you have like 2 dominant months, 2 average months, and then you could spare a month or 2 that are bad. So the Dodgers would be a couple games over 500 if it wasn't for this 6-game losing streak. So I just want to be clear that I'm not worried about the Dodgers. This is kind of like the first time all year that they've had a true struggle, like a true, like, they're going through it right now. They have had times throughout the season where they haven't been played too well. They've kind of had series here and there, lose a couple series, win a couple series. I remember when they lost a series to the Orioles. They did get swept by the Diamondbacks to end the first half, but that ended the first half, and then they started off the second half by winning series against the Mariners and the Phillies and the Yankees. So, this is really the first time that we look at the team and go, they are struggling, they are playing bad, this has been a bad stretch. So I'm not worried about the Dodgers. I think they're going to be fine and turn this around. They still have 2 months to go, and a lot of guys are actually still currently playing well, like Freddie Freeman, Ohtani. We'll see what Mookie Betts can do. He looked obviously great today. Kyle Tucker's been okay as of late. They did just get Tarek Skubal. They are getting back Blake Snell in a couple days. I think they're going to be fine. But one thing that is of notice and is something that I'm not panicking about, but I'm keeping an eye on, is the standings. Okay, because we know a year ago when the Dodgers began to struggle, who in the National League took off simultaneously? How do you say that word? Simultaneously? Whatever the word is. You know what I'm trying to say. My brain is fried right now. The Dodgers began to struggle. Who got hot? The Milwaukee Brewers. They blew past the Dodgers in terms of best record in baseball. The Dodgers fell to the 3 seed and obviously had to play in the wild card. Well, right now the Dodgers have been passed up by the Brewers for best record in baseball, so they are no longer the 1 seed, and they are now currently tied for the 2 seed with the Atlanta Braves. All right, so if they fall past the Braves, that puts them back in the wild card game. There still is a ton of time, so I'm not panicking, but that is something to legitimately keep an eye on, where for a while they had the best record in baseball. I mean, a week ago they were 1 win away from 70 wins. A week later, they still stand 1 win away from 70 wins. So, they got to turn this around quick because the Brewers just passed them up. Now, they're nowhere, the Brewers haven't ran past them like they did a year ago. Still a lot of time. They can turn things around and, reclaim best record in baseball and first in the NL. So it's just something to keep an eye on before we wrap it up. They will go to Arizona for 3. That'll be Sasaki on Friday, Yamamoto Saturday, Robleski Sunday. I'll be honest, I don't love that the game is in Arizona. The Diamondbacks always play the Dodgers well in Arizona, and they always hit. And right now, with the way the pitching looks, I do not love the Dodgers going to a hitter-friendly park with guys like Robleski and Sasaki on the mound who will give up homers. Now, Sasaki's been much better as of late. I trust Yamamoto to get us a win. I trust Robleski can bounce back, but I am nervous that the Diamondbacks are also, you might think, well, we're in a stretch of playing some good teams. Here's a little bit of a breather with the Diamondbacks. Wrong. They have one of the best records in baseball since July. They just swept the Dodgers a few weeks ago at home, so they are playing well. So this is going to be a tough series. You got to pitch the ball better. The bullpen has to step up, and we need to score some runs. All right, especially with runners in scoring position. That has been a problem as of late. But I will leave you guys with this. I feel like the Dodgers will be okay. I feel like they are getting a little bit more healthy, especially on the pitching side. I think, obviously, the addition of Tarek Skubal is going to help. Blake Snell as well. Soon they will have a rotation of Tarek Skubal, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, and Blake Snell, followed by guys like Robleski, Lauer, and Sasaki. All right, and one of those guys probably goes to the pen. So that's all I have for you guys. I can't talk about this anymore. As always, you can get this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow us on all social media at Talking Blue Pod. You can follow myself at Nick Talking Ball on X. I will see you guys this weekend to recap the Dodgers, the Diamondbacks. Have a good rest of your night, everybody.